the other person could have, let's say, a red mark or a scratch. Hey everybody, good afternoon. This is David Kohlmeier, the problem solver. How are you today? Thanks for joining us, whether it's audio and video. We are here live on Facebook, social media, helping people solve problems every single week. I am Dave Kohlmeier, the problem solver. I'm a retired police officer from Henderson in New York City, served 17 years as a police officer, and I'm now helping people, whether it's a small problem or a big problem, I'm helping everybody in general. If I can't solve the problem, I'm going to bring other problem solvers on the show in order to basically help people. 24/7, you can call and text anytime. This week, a special, I have a new phone number for the problem solver for 2022. Normally, it was 400-7474, but we've changed that. So normally when you call the police, it's going to be 911, but the problem solver is 999-1111. Again, that's 702-999-1111. That's the problem solver. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If I can't solve the problem, other problem solvers that are connected with me will help solve that problem. Again, also every single week we have a live show every Thursday at 4:30. We also have a progressive web app, which is theproblemsolver.vegas, where you can have the app on your phone. You can put in a problem. You can get resources, information. It is a live app where you can communicate with me one-on-one, or you can just pick up the phone and call me. Again, that's 702-999-1111. David Kohlmeier, the problem solver. Anyway, today, thanks so much for joining me. And today I have a legendary guest here today, legendary. His name is AJ Sharp. AJ, thank you so much for joining me today.
Glad to be here.
So as usual, I try to bring on amazing people to the show every single week, and it could be a nonprofit, community leader, different people within the community. You're extremely educated and you're an attorney. And, we met a long time ago in general, and I just thought it would be great to have you on the show, specifically because you went on your own, even though you're an attorney, and you specialize in different things. So I wanted to bring you on just to share, everything about you.
Always happy to be here.
So, AJ, so tell me a little bit background about yourself, where you're originally from. I know some people may not know who you are, but I want to share a little bit where you're from originally.
Well, I grew up in Indiana, went to college in Ohio and Michigan, and then Los Angeles, went to law school in Northwestern, came to Vegas about 13 years ago, 2 years after I got out of law school, and started practicing personal injury law here in Vegas.
What brought you specifically to, what were you thinking in Vegas?
Well, I had been for a long time playing blackjack for a living while I was in graduate school, and I found myself traveling back and forth between Los Angeles and Vegas quite often. And back when the economy melted down in 2008, 2009, my firm was in LA was laying some attorneys off, and so I basically volunteered to be laid off with a severance package, and I moved to Vegas. Haven't looked back.
How many years were you playing blackjack?
Seriously, about 6 years.
Okay, that's cool. I remember you telling me that in general. I get nervous. I'm here 20 years, February. Technically, probably February 7th.
Yep.
I've always wanted to actually go into the casinos, when they show where they, they'll teach you how to play, you know? And I used to always see the signs. I always remember at the Palms Hotel. I was like, I should come back. It's Thursdays at 10 o'clock. They'll teach you, But I was always afraid that coming to Vegas, that it's very easy if you're educated how to play, then I'll start playing and lose money.
Yeah,
and
they'll teach you how to lose.
I'll become like a statistic and I'll be on the news, cop basically arrested for something, So I always kind of stayed away from the gambling in general. If I lost $100 in roulette, I was done. Like if friends came to town, I would be upset I lost $100. Oh. Were you very good at blackjack?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was. Still am.
Do you still play once in a while?
Once in a while. If I play now, I'm usually teaching somebody how to play.
Okay.
A lot of people want to learn how to play. Back when I was living in LA, I had a network of fairly wealthy people who would get in contact with me, and they'd fly me up to Vegas and put me up in a hotel, and I'd spend 2 or 3 days teaching them how to play blackjack. We play with their money, and I kept half the winnings. So that was my deal. Now it's usually just one-on-one teaching or teaching a couple how to play. Do
you still enjoy it, or is it a high just to win? Or
I mean, it's all right. Blackjack's kind of boring when you know what you're doing, because it takes about 1% of your mental power to play the game. So, but it's not bad. It's entertaining.
I was just thinking of an intellectual, because I know you're very intellectual. I'm thinking of an intellectual question, like, how does the law being an attorney, I'm trying to ask, how does it in regards to
Intersect with
blackjack? Yeah, like how does it? What would you? You have to.
The same principle applies.
Okay.
You should never gamble unless you know what you're doing, and that's true in law and it's true in blackjack. Because, like I said, if you let a casino teach you how to play their game, you're going to lose. And if you have a professional who knows what they're doing teach you how to play that game, because just like in law, just like in gambling, it's about beating the game.
Interesting. So law is the same type of game, and if you're not educated how to play the game, you're going to wind up losing.
More likely than not, yeah.
It's interesting because I know that, you're a very smart individual, because when we've talked in the past, but it's very interesting because you think that when you have an attorney representing you, whether it's criminal defense or personal injury, the one that knows the books, and knows the game basically is going to help you more than anybody else.
True.
So that's why you want someone extremely educated to be your attorney. In my past, when I worked with different law firms, I never really had anyone ask me like, oh, what school did the attorney go to? Or like, what was his GPA, But you would think that people may want to look on the wall, but I never really noticed that. But I really do believe it's important. Would you agree? Like, does it make a difference if you have a lawyer that went to Harvard and the lawyer went to, not anything against UNLV, because there's great attorneys, Do you think it's make a major big difference?
So I think it can, but the rule of thumb is the LSAT, which is the law school admission test, doesn't have anything to do with succeeding in law school. Law school doesn't have anything to do with passing the bar, and passing the bar doesn't have anything to do with being a good lawyer. So what you get with somebody who's gone to law school and passed the bar is you get basically a minimum level of competence, and from there, it's a matter of how hard do they work, how much do they keep up with educating themselves on the law, and some of it's natural talent. Some people are just naturally good at it, and some people have to work really hard to be good at it.
It's interesting, since I was a cop for 17 years, I've had some criminal defense attorneys on the show. Do you believe, I feel with criminal defense, a lot of times the attorney that's representing you, it's a relationship that they have with the deputy district attorneys. I mean, I guess it's a mixture of both, but I do find a lot of it's negotiation, where whether someone committed a crime or first time, second time, I guess it's different. If you robbed a bank, or you really hurt someone, it's a different story, right? But for the most part, DUI, domestic battery cases, I feel like a lot of times it's the relationship and the rapport that the criminal defense attorney has with the deputy district attorney in regards to, I'm sure education is important in the case, but what are your thoughts about that?
Not being a criminal defense attorney, but my former law partner was a criminal defense attorney. And I think you're right. I think that that relationship goes a long way. And it's not necessarily like, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. It's more, if I know the DA, or I know who's on the other side, I know, I have an expectation of how this case is going to go. I mean, let's face it, these criminals aren't, or accused criminals aren't, reinventing the wheel. One DUI is a DUI is a DUI for the most part. And so, it may be how you present it to them, to the other side, so that you know how to aim it towards the outcome that you want. I think there's always value in knowing the other side and having a good working relationship with them.
I think with like personal injury and accidents, it's different because it's, the injury, the treatment, the value, the policy, right? It's not really I guess you could say it's also a rapport that you have maybe with the insurance side, right, to negotiate things. But I just noticed with the criminal defense, I find a lot of it is the rapport. And I guess it's the same situation you mentioned about a game. I mean, if you know the game in general and you know that, hey, I read the police report and the officer's off, or they're missing stuff out, or you don't have the evidence, I guess that there's more room for negotiation in general.
And that's true on both sides, I think, criminal and civil. If you know that you have a solid case, you're in a much stronger position than if there are obvious weak spots or not so obvious weak spots. But, I did defense work for 7 years before I started doing plaintiff's work. And, I worked, I guess I can say I worked with Richard Harris when I switched over. I did Walmart for 5 years here, and switched over to Richard Harris. And when they were first talking to me about coming over from Walmart, I was concerned because I had cases against every attorney in their firm, and I had won most of them. I had defeated everybody from the boss on down in court. And I said, I don't want to go somewhere to work where everybody hates me. And Josh Harris, Rick's son, said, our attorneys all love you. And I think that's more a function of the fact that I'm always a straight shooter. I'm always professional. I try to always be pleasant And, you know, it's an adversarial system that doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about everything. And so, you know, I'm just going to practice law, and I'm going to be honest with you. This is what I think of the case. And, you know, when I went over to Rick Harris, I did find that the attorneys welcomed me with open arms.
Interesting. You know, one of the best things I like about you that you worked at Walmart as an attorney on the defense side, right? I would love to, you know, I want to go into also, I know that you basically went on your own and you worked for other law firms, but let's go back a little bit in regards to you working at Walmart, because I think a lot of people like hearing Walmart stories. You always see these social media pictures, like people walking with like the pajamas or the crazy outfits.
Yeah.
Tell me, so you worked for Walmart for 5 years.
Yeah.
Tell us, you know, I you know, because I also talk with people when they call me and say, oh, I've got a problem, I got a slip and fall. I actually had one recently where the person was walking around with a chicken, one of these roasted chickens, whatever, and they said that some of the grease that fell on the floor, but they were carrying it, and they slipped on the grease of the chicken, but they were carrying the chicken. I was like, this is a good one. I never heard this one before. What's your thoughts with a case like that one, since you're the Walmart expert attorney?
Well, first I want to clarify, I didn't actually work for Walmart. I worked for a firm here in town called Phillips, Spallis, and Engstadt, which was the local counsel for Walmart. So I wasn't, you know, an employee of Walmart. I was an employee of that law firm. But we did 98% of the business we did was representing Walmart and Sam's Club, which is Walmart.
Okay.
And but yeah, we had some interesting things. I remember I had a case. It was a teenage girl who slipped and fell, and we got surveillance video from the store. She slipped and fell on laundry detergent on the floor, and so we got surveillance video from the store. So I called up the plaintiff's attorney, who I'm still good friends with and is a client of mine now. And I said, why don't you come over to my office and we'll watch this video together. And what the video showed was this girl had come into the store with two teenage girl friends. And as soon as they came in the door, all three of them split up and went different directions. And then one of those girls went to the laundry detergent aisle and poured laundry detergent on the floor. And we had it on video. And then she leaves. And then a few minutes later, her friend comes around the corner and slips and falls in that detergent that she had intentionally poured on the floor.
Wow.
So it was a big scam. I mean, I've seen a few of those where, you know, as soon as we show the other side, the surveillance video, they just drop the client and move on.
So what do you thought in regards to the chicken one? What are your thoughts? Because they're the ones that were carrying and walking around with the chicken, right?
It's never easy for a plaintiff if the plaintiff created the hazardous condition on which the plaintiff then fell. You know, there'd be some evidentiary questions as to whether that grease was what they actually slipped and fell on. There's a whole lot of ways. There's a lot of ways I would attack that if I were the defense lawyer, and there's a lot of ways I'd attack it if I was a plaintiff's lawyer. But off the top of my head, it doesn't sound great for a plaintiff, but you never know.
What's one of the craziest cases, if you don't mind, without, of course, confidentiality, with leaving out names, what's one of the craziest cases that you had that kind of would be interesting to some of the listeners?
The craziest case at Walmart? Personally, the craziest case I handled at Walmart was a trucking case where a lady was involved in an accident on a freeway with a Walmart truck.
Okay, not even in the store.
No, and the reason it was so crazy was because the plaintiff in this case happened to be the ex-wife of one of the biggest plaintiff's attorneys in town. She worked for another one of the biggest. She was an attorney, and she worked for one of the biggest attorneys in town, and she was represented by one of the other biggest plaintiffs attorneys in town. So it was the perfect storm of plaintiffs firms. And I was fairly new to Vegas at the time. I'd been here about a year and a half, and I only knew all these attorneys by name. I didn't know any of them personally, but that case was how I met Rick Harris. And so it was a fun case, both from that standpoint and just from
but that was just a car accident?
It was a car accident, but it was there were $2 million in damages claims. She apparently messed up her back pretty bad, and so it was a really interesting case from an investigative standpoint, because we had to do a lot of accident reconstruction to figure out how the accident happened, and then try to square that with her testimony about what she remembered about the accident. And it was a very contentious case, shall we say. And but we ended up resolving it, and good stuff. But that was how I met a lot of the people that I work with now.
Because it was a big case.
Yeah, because it was a big case, and because a lot of the big plaintiffs firms were involved just because of this girl had a connection to them.
What about any cases that are inside the store? Anything unusual, crazy? I actually wanted to share when I was a cop, but any other things come to your mind?
Most of the ones that jump to my mind when somebody asks me that are the ones where we have surveillance video that directly contradicts what the plaintiff had told. Keep in mind, I was a defense lawyer at the time, so I always liked that when I would get the file. Oh, this lady slipped and fell on laundry detergent, and then I get the file from the store, and there's surveillance video, and I start watching it, and it's just kind of like a eureka moment when you go, oh, now we know what really happened. But overall, my favorite thing in dealing with those kind of cases with the plaintiff's bar here was people, especially plaintiff's attorneys in town, were under the mistaken impression that every square inch of every Walmart store is covered by surveillance cameras. So if there was an accident and they asked us in discovery for surveillance video, and we would say, there is none, we don't have any. And they always thought that we were destroying video or withholding video or whatever. And I would try to explain to them that, only about 25% of Walmart stores are covered by surveillance video. It's basically high traffic areas and high theft areas. They're not like a casino where every square inch is covered by surveillance. So I had to fight that battle. I don't know how many times where they're trying to get us in trouble for destroying video that never existed in the first place. And I used to tell, and this is where I think my credibility with the other side would come in, because I would tell them, look, if I have video, I'd rather have video than not have video. And I don't care if the video is good for me, bad for me, indifferent, just, it's always nice to not have to argue about what actually happened. Hey, we have it on video now. Let's talk about the damages and liability instead of, did she really slip and fall, or, that kind of thing.
Sometimes you always hear that some attorneys say, it's better off if they don't have the video because then it may hurt their case.
Plaintiff's attorneys. Yeah.
How long is it normal? It came up today, actually. Someone I spoke with today that called, aka the problem solver, maybe. They called and they said, well, maybe this video. In regards to preservation of video, like Walmart, is it normally 30 days? Is it 2 years? Like statute of limitations? Like what is a...
There's no statute of limitations on it, and there's no norm per store. Usually what the stores were, for Walmart at least, was they would have a DVR system or something where this was stored, and the DVR just has, a maximum capacity. So if, for example, a lot of times you would have a slip and fall where the person didn't report it to the store at the time it happened. So then they go and they, okay, I'm getting treated by a doctor. I go to a lawyer, and then all of a sudden, 6 months after the incident, Walmart finds out for the first time that the incident happened. Well, by then, the odds that they're going to be able to go back and get video from that day are slim and none. Usually the turnover was about a month before it started overwriting the drive. Now, if they go see a lawyer immediately after, and the lawyer will send a letter to Walmart and say, hey, we've got this claim and you need to preserve evidence, at that point, the attorneys are going to go to the store and say, go back and get this video, even if it wasn't reported to the store at the time. If it's reported at the time, then normally they'll go preserve video right then.
But normally you want, like, if you really are injured and it's a serious claim, you really want the video to showcase, right, the negligence of the store or whoever it may be, right?
Video never hurts. It's always, if it's fraud, it can hurt. But if you have a legitimate claim, I would always rather have video than not have video.
So an attorney is the one that would send like a preservation of evidence. Can a regular person do that to like someone? I know we're talking about Walmart because you worked there, but whether it's Walgreens or CVS, these big stores, can a regular person send it, or they're only going to do it if it's an attorney?
No, I think you could send a letter if you were just, a civilian and you sent a letter, because the point of the letter is to put them on notice of the potential claim. And I don't see, if Walmart gets a letter, and I don't think Walmart would do this, but if they got a letter and they didn't do anything to preserve evidence, and then 2 years later they're in court arguing why they shouldn't be sanctioned for that, I don't think it's going to carry any weight for them to say, oh, the letter was from the claimant rather than from an attorney. They're still on notice of the claim.
Do you feel like that stuff like this should be like certified mail as well, right? To show, like, how do you, if I say, oh, I sent a letter, they didn't save the video, they'll say, well, how do you prove that, right? Unless you send certified mail with a return receipt.
That's always a good thing to do.
Okay. Yeah. So that's good to know. Like I said, it came up today in regards to, it was an accident in a parking lot that was outside. And actually the lawyer that I spoke with today said the only way that they could really send the preservation of evidence, I think they were saying that if they actually did a lawsuit, if they actually submitted for a lawsuit, then they can get the video.
Well, yeah, you're generally not going to get the video until you're into discovery, which requires filing a lawsuit. Almost no retailer will give you the video when you're just in the claim status. You got to have the power of the court to get it.
And what's interesting about that is because it came up in conversation today, but if it's evidence of a crime that's not involved with, let's say, Walgreens or Walmart, normally most of these places would work with law enforcement to get the video, right?
Of
like
course,
if it's a crime,
yeah.
because that's what happened today. We were thinking about like preservation of evidence, but if it's part of a criminal, it's part of a crime, then normally law enforcement would look into it. One of the problems what I notice is being a retired police officer, but I was a cop, 17 years for Henderson in New York City. A lot of times, sometimes some cops are really on the ball and they'll go and they'll notify loss prevention. Some will say, oh, this is private property. It's a parking lot, notify the DMV or, you have to do it on just notify your insurance company, and they don't get involved with getting that video. Right. And then that's a problem. Then the average consumer, the average person is not like, oh, I need to go get the video and then the other thing I'm not sure if you're familiar with out here to educate the public, there's event numbers and there's report numbers. You know the difference?
No.
Okay. So every time a police officer goes out, he has a drink with you and he's on a break or something like that, there's an event number of his location and time. And normally it's the date. It's normally the date, like the month, the year, and the day. And then there's 000, and then it says like 001. And every day it starts over, right? So today, like right now, if I was a cop and I was on like lunch, it would be today's date, and the event number would be 283, and the next cop would be 284, 285, every incident in what they call CAD system would basically show up. So what happens is a lot of people say they'll go to the police and they'll write down the little piece of paper, they'll write down this long number, and you think it's a report number, but it's an event number. The person says, hey, here's an event number. And like, oh, thank you so much. I made a police report. So people really aren't educated the difference. So with this person I spoke with today, they got an event number. The lawyer's saying you need to go get the report. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the number, So people aren't educated. There's an event number and there's a report number. And then the problem with it is that, the average person doesn't know when sometimes the police, are not as cooperative. They'll say, hey, can you get me the video that's inside? Like people aren't thinking that way, right?
Yeah.
So I had to basically help out with getting like an investigator to help out the person to make their case in order to basically make a claim. So it's kind of interesting because, like I said, people aren't educated. And the truth is, look, a lot of cops know the difference. And I'm not saying, sometimes cops can sometimes slough a little bit,
True.
And it's great to say, oh, it's private property. Like I don't have to make a report, And I'm not saying I haven't done that in the past as well. But, like I said, we get hundreds of reports. And then once it's on private property, like, oh, great, it's private property. So in regards to Walmart, another interesting story that I had, I was looking at TVs in the back and I noticed that someone had like a soda and they must have I feel like they just dropped it. And then they were with the family and they fell and then they were staying on the floor, and then the ambulance came and all this other stuff in general. I just feel like these days people just think that Walmart and these big stores have so much money that I might as well just throw myself on the floor. I'm sure if you had a guess, this is a good question. How many I was about to say cases with Walmart throughout the United States of America, all the Walmarts, is it like 100 cases a day?
Oh, no, it's more than that. Yeah.
So like people making claims that they got injured inside of Walmart.
Yeah, it's three or four a day just in Nevada.
So 3 or 4 days. So times 50 states. So
yeah. Most states have more people than Nevada. So
you think 300 people a day?
At least, yeah.
And there's lawyers in every...
Yep.
Is it every state that is representing every state, right?
Yeah.
That's incredible. You think about how many lawsuits.
Put it this way, the firm that I worked for will never go out of business. And all they do is Walmart. So
it's just straight Walmart.
Yeah.
And they probably have enough just with Walmart.
In fact, this particular firm is headquartered in San Francisco. And for a long time, they were sending attorneys down from California to handle the Walmart business. And they ended up opening an office here and getting Nevada lawyers because there was that much business when I worked there. There were 6 attorneys in that office, and we had full-time work and then some. Just handling Las Vegas, not even the whole state.
What's your thoughts? I guess I'm here now 20 years, so probably let's just say 17 years ago, I was a cop in Henderson. I was at Sunset and Marks at the Walmart over there, and I remember someone was running out with, they were stealing some stuff.
It wasn't O.J. Simpson, right?
No.
Okay.
And I don't think he's at Sunset and Marks. He's more of a Summerlin guy.
He's more of a Palace Station guy.
Yeah. Palace and Summerlin. So let's say, so the person runs out, and I think that the person had a needle, and the needle, the bad guy basically uses the needle in the loss prevention. Because loss prevention a lot of times would be chasing. Like, they're going in the parking lot, they're going northbound, they're going to Sunset. So they got injured by the needle. And then it seems slowly over time, loss prevention, specifically at Walmart and other places, like you can no longer chase people. in your, I know it's been a little bit since you worked at Walmart. What's your thoughts with it? It seems like everybody, and I know that in other states, in California, like you no longer can chase people if they steal, and people are shutting down. I think it's Walgreens and other places. Places are closing down because there's so much theft taking place.
San Francisco, you can't even stop them anymore if they steal. People are going in with bags and filling stuff up and walking out with them right in front. And all the security guards will do is they'll film you with their phone. They won't try to stop you. But
is it just because the liability of the lawsuits is just?
I think it's a mixture of things. I mean, that decision making is a little above my pay grade. But I would say that it's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Technically, it's property. It's a property crime.
And then you think about a Walmart security guard chases somebody. You have potential liability from the suspect. You have potential workers' comp claim from the security guard who pulls a hamstring or something. You have, you're running through a parking lot. What if somebody hits him with a car, hits your guy with a car? There's all kinds of stuff. It's like, you really want to over $100 worth of merchandise? Do you really want to open that door?
But how do we prevent that in society? I mean, because if everybody, I know it's a big question for you, but you're an intelligent guy, so you have to figure this out today on the problem solver. So here's my question. I mean, if everyone's changing now, like, okay, they could just steal and walk out. Everyone knows this. Hopefully they're not listening to the problem solver and they realize now they can just go out and steal stuff. But if everybody can go in the store and just shoplift, they do the video, no one really knows who they are, I mean, not really getting fingerprints and evidence unless you're like a known criminal, or you get into a car and they get the license plate number, which I know the cameras are really good at Walmart in regards to zooming in. How do you prevent that? Because these stores are closing up. I think it's in San Francisco. They were saying they were closing stores. I mean, how do we, you can't put everything behind the lockbox. Even the other day, I wanted to get a razor. I can't even get a razor anymore. I can't get anything.
I couldn't get I went to Walmart for lithium batteries and they had them locked up. Depends on who you mean by we. How do we prevent that? Are you talking about Walmart?
I guess any of these stores in general, because
I don't think they have a necessarily huge incentive to prevent it. Because first of all, the amount of theft that goes on at a store like that is a drop in the bucket of overall revenue of the revenue business. Yeah, I mean, it's there is still some decency in society, and most of the people who go into a Walmart aren't stealing. They're spending money. So I think it's a balance for the corporation to decide, how much effort do we want to have, do we want to put, and how much resources do we want to put into preventing this. And it may be that we want to put a lot if it's really, cutting into the bottom line. Because, if the bottom line gets too bad, the store closes. Like you were saying, they're doing that in San Francisco. They closed a bunch of CVS stores and everything because they were losing too much money to theft. But I don't see Walmart having that problem. I think it's a line item issue for companies like that.
I just think I feel bad for society in general, where I feel just things are just changing, and just people know that they can get away with crime, and things become rampant. But like I said, I remember back in the day they were always chasing them, and I remember even in a CVS one where they tackled somebody and the guy got injured and the ambulance came, and I think he lost his job. Even the other day I had somebody where they worked in one of these grocery stores. I think it became a little bit of a racial issue, and the employee that worked at the store, he felt, it was a racist comment, and he walks around the table, the counter, to like kind of confront verbally. And he was saying like, he has a supervisor, for that day he was acting like as a leader, And I said to him personally, I said, look, I'm not an attorney, I'm not giving you any legal advice, but as a retired cop, but you coming around in some regards, it presented more of a liability that if you stayed, around the counter and you called the police or a manager, that would be better these days, especially for large corporations, millions of dollars. Once you come around that counter, it's like you're trying to engage with them, even verbally, and it wasn't worth it. So they get into a fight, tussling around. He winds up losing his job. So he's trying to get his job back because he feels. But I said personally, just in my opinion, I said, look, anybody can sue anybody. Of course, I want you to get your job back. But I think that the company looks good by releasing that employee, because now they would discipline him by releasing him, that they don't condone that behavior. Because that person's going to make a claim.
Yeah. Oh, you were talking about crazy Walmart cases like that. I did have a case. Oh, this was way back in the day, probably 2010. But guy got busted shoplifting at Walmart on Thanksgiving, and they actually had him, the loss prevention guy who was running the video cameras, for some reason had his eye on this guy as soon as he walked in the store, and he had explanation for why he was but he followed him through the store with the cameras, and every time he walked out of range of one camera, this guy would get another camera, and basically we had a whole movie of him moving through the store. And this guy went to a DVD section, and he took a bunch of DVDs, and he had put a bunch of stuff in a shopping cart, so he puts the DVDs in a shopping cart. Then he goes to another section, and he stops, and he literally stopped right under a camera, and he pulls a box cutter out of his pocket, and he opens up the DVDs and pulls the DVDs out, and he shoves the DVDs down his pants. And then he walks around with his shopping cart a little bit more, and he then abandons his shopping cart, and he starts walking towards the front door. So as soon as he passes the last cash register, our guy comes out of the security office and busts him. And I mean, we've got him dead to rights. We've got him on video. One of the movies he stole was Medea Goes to Jail, which I thought was pretty funny. But they call the cops. The cops arrest him. He goes to trial. He pleads not guilty. He goes to trial. He gets sentenced to like 180 days. And as soon as he got out of jail, he sues Walmart for $33.5 million for false imprisonment, slander, because we told the cops that he was stealing and all this. And that was one where I went to Walmart and I said, I'm not paying this guy a dime, because all he wanted was for us to offer him like $5,000 and he'd go away, right? And I looked him up, and he does this all the time. He causes problems in a casino until they throw him out. And then he claims, it was racist that they threw me out. And they would give him some money to go away. And I said, I'm not giving him any money. So we spent close to $40,000 defending that case. But we got it thrown out both in state court and federal court, and he didn't get a dime. So.
You know, it's interesting you talk about this case, because there was a case out of California that someone talked about, and I think it's kind of interesting. It's more of an ADA thing, and I'm not sure how this works in this state, but it's interesting. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're knowledgeable about it, but there's a guy who's very, always trying to sue everybody in California. What he would do is he would go out, to downtown Los Angeles and go to these different, jewelry shops, and he would go down and he would look for the ADA issues that because he's in a wheelchair, and the counter, right, is not lower, right, and he's actually has a lawyer, and they go and here's the weird situation about the case. When I looked into it, they would say the date that the person was there, but if you want to go back and look at the video camera, right, you weren't really sure, unless you have video or not. He may not even be there. Like, he could have been just a what do you call it, I'm about to say like an inspector ghost for the law firm. Go up and down this street on Broadway and let me know every place that has a counter that doesn't have a handicap spot, and then just send, the guy may not even have actually ever been inside that actual jewelry store. So he does a lawsuit, and the problem is, right, there's federal and the state, and California maybe work differently than here. But the problem is it costs a lot of money for the small business owner, and then they try to negotiate the case. But I think it's messed up because the guy is doing this to make money for himself. It's not like he's taking the money and giving it to a nonprofit for American Disabilities Act. Yeah. He's doing this as a job that he's going every single day, and he's trying to find the loopholes. And then he has one law firm. I mean, I think it's kind of messed up. I mean, what's your thoughts in regards to, what do you call that? What's the word? Litigious?
Yeah, they could call him a vexatious litigant.
Yeah,
But I actually got consulted by a law firm in California about exactly what you're talking about. Probably the same person, but it was one person and then one lawyer who had, this continual stream of ADA cases claiming, and they put a couple of businesses out of business by, getting them required to, retrofit a wheelchair ramp or something like that. And all they were trying to do was get money out of the business. Mm-hmm. So I actually got consulted on by that. Yeah, and it's messed up, but it's a systemic problem.
I guess they're at fault because they should be following the ADA. But if you have someone that's doing 150 lawsuits saying like, American Disabilities Act, and I understand that they should correct, but is it right for someone to make, let's say, millions of dollars because they just keep,
It's the situation, when Congress passed the ADA back in 1990, they created a private right of action, which is not always the case when you have those requirements. So you can have the requirement, but normally you would have like a Department of Health or, somebody who would enforce it. But in that case, they create a private right of action, meaning, I can go sue if they don't meet it, or you can go sue. Mm-hmm. And, it's a balancing act for the legislature. Is it worth that kind of thing in order to spread the enforcement out among all the people who are actually, disadvantaged by the conduct of these businesses? So, is there a right answer to that? I don't know. What's the right answer? Don't have an ADA?
I guess it has to change like the laws. I know California's a little bit different. maybe liberal, but I just think that, like, even though you do a lawsuit, I think that they should be notified. Like, if it's like code enforcement came in and said, hey, this table needs to be lowered, right?
Yeah.
And then giving them a warning to change.
Yeah.
But automatically to do 150 lawsuits for one guy to make money from it, I mean, I think it's kind of corrupt and criminal.
Yeah. And I think the only two ways you get around that is you get the law changed to where they can cut back on some of those abuses, or you get the courts to say, we're not gonna play this game, and that's hard for courts to do because they're bound to the law. So really, it comes from the legislature. It's how they structure it.
I'm assuming Walmart is so big that they would have this all covered. Have you had any ADA things like that too?
I honestly don't know. I wasn't in that area.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it's just totally different. All right. So we talked about Walmart, I think, enough in general. Fun place to.
It's good. I haven't gotten to talk about Walmart in years.
Fun place to have a lawsuit. It's a fun place to shop at. A fun place to meet different people. It's definitely very interesting in that place in general. You never know what you're going to see there. All right. So I know that you work from different firms. So you basically went on your own to create Word Sharp.
Yes.
Your last name is Sharp. Tell us a little about Word Sharp and what exactly that you're doing in town. Well, just walking around good looking and being legendary,
Yeah. No, the way this came about was I practiced law for 7 years on the defense side, and then for 5 years, 3 years, I guess, on the plaintiff side. But my practice of law was unusual in that, and this has kind of been true of me, and you'll be able to relate to this. Like every profession I've ever worked in, every job that I've ever had, I would become the problem solver for whoever I work for.
Don't take my job, please.
I know, exactly. But I would say in law, I was basically the David Kohlmeier of the legal industry. So I had a lot of people, lawyers in my firm and lawyers in other firms, who would be calling me saying, I have this situation in my case, procedurally, how can I address it? And then a lot of times they would hire me to write what they were going to file with the court and even to go to court and argue it. And I was doing that when I was working with Rick Harris. I started working for him in 2014. And in 2016, I had been talking to him the whole time I was there. And I said, this is what I would like to do. And at the time he had 18 or 20 attorneys. So there's always problems like this, and it's what we call, in the attorney business, we call it law in motion, which is basically when you're going to file a motion or you're responding to a motion, you're trying to make the legal system do what you want it to do. And all the attorneys in the firm would come to me, saying, hey, we need to do a motion or we got to oppose this motion. So I finally was talking to Rick and saying, look, that's what I want to do. I don't want to do the day-to-day, representing clients. I can add a lot more value doing this, because a lot of times you're talking about a motion that if we lose it, the case is going to go away, So we got to be able to win these things. So Rick saw the light on that. He agreed with me on that. So eventually they created a job where that was what I was doing I was doing law in motion for the entire firm. And what that does for the firm is, first of all, it means they're going to have a much more consistent output in court. We're going to win a lot more of the time. And also it frees up the other attorneys to do more of the kinds of things that actually bring revenue into the firm. They can take on more cases because they're not having to spend hours and hours and hours doing the kind of thing that I do. So I did that for a while, and then Rick started coming to me and saying, hey, there's an attorney I know at another firm, and I'd like to hook you up with him so you can do that for his firm. And then Rick and I would split the money that we got from this other firm, and he also, I think he was billing me out at like $100 an hour, which is really, really ridiculously low.
You're worth like $1,000.
So after about a year of doing that, I was like, well, this is, because at the same time, I was still managing my own caseload with the firm, so I was not doing my best at anything because I'm splitting my attention between these two things. So I finally said, you know what, I'm just going to go form a company and I'm going to do this. And Rick Harris was my first client, In fact, when I told him I was leaving, he was very encouraging. Not that he wanted me to leave, but just he said, I think you're going to do really well. And he just wanted to make sure that I would still work with him, which I would. I love Rick.
No, Rick's a good guy.
So that was 5 years ago, and I was uncertain as to how much of a market there would be for that. I figured there would be at least enough that I'd be able to live, but as it turns out, I literally have more work than I know what to do with, and I have close to 50 clients now, and all my clients are attorneys or law firms, and I'm more busy than I know what to do with.
I think what happens is once you open the doors, and you kind of
Yeah.
shared this with me as well, that you dedicated and focused to it, that eventually people are going to start calling you. And it just takes time for people to know.
Well, my favorite part of it is I've never advertised. I've never promoted myself.
Save some money.
Other than coming in here to talk to you today.
This is the first time.
Well, it's not even money. It's just when I started, I was thinking about advertising. I was like, how do I want to promote this? How do I want to get a hold of people? And I never had to, because literally from the time I went out on my own, my phone was pretty much ringing off the hook with people wanting me to do what I do. And then my clients, every client I get pretty much is word of mouth referral by a current client, because lawyer A will call lawyer B and say, I have this thing I don't know what to do with.
Call AJ.
And lawyer B will say, why haven't you called AJ?
No, I think you have a reputation, and you're, like I said, you're very educated, and you had experience, and people know about you. And probably the defense side, people are like, wow, he really did an amazing job against me.
I constantly have defense attorneys trying to hire me, and I only do plaintiff's work. I don't do defense work. So they're very disappointed.
Don't go to the dark side, Luke.
You mean don't go back to the dark side?
So what's one of your biggest satisfactions? I mean, now that you're kind of on your own, it probably pays. Look, you don't have a boss, you're your own person in general, but is there any satisfaction that the work that you're doing, I mean, you're not on the defense side, so you're helping people on the plaintiff side. What biggest satisfaction in general for what you do on a daily basis?
The biggest satisfaction, well, as Rick said to me when I told him I was leaving his firm, he said, you figured out the secret. And I said, what secret is that? And he said, when you own the company, you get to keep all the money. And because I was splitting my money with Rick, and I wasn't being paid nearly what the value I was adding was worth, which, I mean, that's not Rick's fault. It's just law firms aren't structured to work that way, right?
Got it.
So I immediately, I charge about 4 times an hour what Rick was charging for my time. And I still have more work than I know what to do with. But I think the best thing that I've been able to do, in addition, there are a lot of individual people that I have helped as far as actual plaintiffs, where their attorneys have gotten me involved in their case, and you can see, we got this much better outcome because I got involved and we won on this big issue. Sometimes it's we got a bunch of money, whereas we wouldn't have gotten any money, or sometimes it's we got more money than we would have gotten. All of that, goes to the benefit of the plaintiff. But I think the other thing is I've been able to make much more uniform the way law is practiced in Las Vegas. And I'm not trying to take credit for all of it, but basically now I think if you're practicing personal injury law in Las Vegas, you're going to see a much more uniform output from the plaintiff's bar as far as how they're going to oppose your motions and how they're going to file their motions, how they're going to try cases. And some of that is because I'm working with them behind the scenes, and some of it is just because everything that I do becomes a publicly filed document, and other lawyers see it and they adopt my stuff to use in their cases, which I thoroughly encourage them to do. Because for me, it's all I would say it's all about the plaintiffs, but mostly for me, it's all about winning. I like winning. And so, if somebody takes my stuff and goes and wins, that's great for me. And it creates clients for me, and it also helps out the plaintiff, which is what, at bottom line, what it's about.
It'd be interesting to see how many people are the lawyers that are out there that actually got your paperwork or your style and copied that over or have used it. Many.
Yeah.
But you would never know. I mean,
well, no, because
people call and tell you, oh.
No, I get calls from plaintiff's attorneys who say, hey, this motion was just filed in my case. Can you do an opposition for me? And then they'll send it over to me. And it was a motion that I wrote when I was with Walmart. And so either Walmart or some other company has adopted this motion. So now I get to oppose my own motion.
That's interesting.
I get to beat myself.
Is that one of the biggest challenges? I know you have different challenges daily. What?
Yeah. I mean,
you're fighting yourself.
Yeah, but I almost always win, even when I'm fighting against something that I did on the other side. Because
it's not you.
Well, when I was with Walmart, when I was with Walmart, I actually created law when I was with Walmart through the federal courts. And so now, and at the time, I would be writing these motions on behalf of Walmart, and I'd be saying, if I was on the other side, here are the arguments I would come back with, which they never did, you know. And so now I'm on the other side. I get that motion. Oh, I know what arguments I can do to defeat this, because they were the same arguments that the plaintiff could have done back in the day to defeat it. And so I say, I know where the weaknesses in those arguments are. I can beat them.
You know, I just keep thinking, you're saying winning, the game, law, you know, all kind of, you know, it's all those three things: winning, game, and law.
Yeah.
Sounds like it should be a Scrabble, a new game.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I mean, knowledge is power, and you have knowledge, and you know the law, and you know the game from both sides, because you were on, you know, now you're on both. You have been on both sides, and you enjoy winning, and it's a challenge. Are there any other challenges on the day-to-day operations? I mean, you know, I know you have a lot of people. Are you not looking to really expand? It's really just you.
Yeah, I am a one-person show. I don't even have an assistant. I don't have a paralegal. Everything is me, which is fine. I work from home, you know.
It's good because you can't slip and fall.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and have
I can't sue myself. Yeah. So, but no, the challenge for me, the thing that I've been focusing on the last couple of years, is I'm trying to get my attorney clients to get me involved in cases earlier. Because one thing that's really frustrating for me is, you know, they'll go through a case, they've gone through discovery, now they're doing, you know, motions in limine, they're getting ready to go to trial, and they'll call me and say, hey, the other side just filed this motion in limine to exclude our expert, or, you know, to exclude this evidence or whatever. And so I'll say, well, you know, when you were in discovery and you did the deposition of this person and you asked them this question, what did they say? Oh, we didn't depose that person. We didn't ask that question. So I've tried to encourage attorneys to get me involved earlier so I can help them set up a blueprint for discovery to make sure that when they get to that point, they have the evidence that they need in order to defeat those things. So it's kind of cutting my own throat because it's going to cut down on motion practice later on. But, you know, I'd much rather not have to fight those battles, you know, in every case. So that's a lot of what I do. People call me, especially if it's an attorney saying, hey, I have this case that I'm not really familiar with, you know, how it works. Can you help me lay out what discovery I want to do? And a lot of times they'll hire me to do depositions, you know, especially if you're deposing a corporation. I'll go in and say, you know, I know exactly what we need in order to win at trial, so I'll go get it. You know, that's fun.
Since you've done personal injury for so long in general, what are your thoughts? I ask this question a lot just to see what other lawyers say. There's so many billboards with like personal injury attorneys, right? You got the good-looking guy, you got the older guy, you got the guy with good hair, there's so many. You're trying to think who these people are.
I know exactly who.
But
you
got all these. You know, we come here, we go there, you win this. Yep. You know, like you got one in a tuxedo, you got one in you got it all.
Yep.
I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds. I feel like I should.
And I do work for every single one of them.
I feel there's just hundreds of billboards these days, even more than there were. You know, I kind of been involved with working with law firms for almost 6-7 years now, but I feel like it's even more. Like it's crazy how many billboards. The billboard companies are making so much money for this. It's unbelievable. I wish I was a billboard just raking on the money. Now they make digital billboards, right? So like, who knows what they're even doing? Like how many seconds you're getting. I mean, it's the biggest thing what's out there. It's like the billboard companies are just raking the money from the lawyers. How do you feel, you know, if you're a consumer these days, how do you feel that you should find an attorney that does personal injury accidents? You know, since you've been around the block on both sides, I mean, people say all the time, oh, he looks really good looking guy on the billboard, or they like the fact that he's in a tuxedo, or they like the fact that he's got nice hair. How do you find the right personal injury attorney in Las Vegas?
Well, I get asked this question a lot because every person that I know who has any legal issue, they call me, just like they do with everything else in their lives. And so, you know, I have certain attorneys that I send people to for certain types of cases. I generally don't get referral fees. I'm just trying to help them, you know, get a good lawyer. But the thing with the billboards is this, and as with most things in Las Vegas, Rick Harris is, you know, he's the wizard. He's the one who knows. And he told me once, he said every couple of years, somebody new comes up. They've got a firm. They throw a couple $1 million into billboards, and then the next year they're gone. There's no more billboards. There's no more firm. They're gone. Because Rick says, you know, it takes more than a billboard. They think they're just going to spend this money and they're going to build a firm like Rick's firm, or like, you know, Ed Bernstein's firm, or, you know, whoever. But there's more to it than that. And I think a lot of people, Rick's firm and a lot of the bigger firms, they get cases that have already gone through 2 or 3 attorneys, and the attorney will drop the case because once they get a hold of it, they don't know how to turn it into the case that they need. And so there are a lot of firms in town cleaning those things up, taking on those cases and turning them into what they should have been to begin with. But it's not. You can have all the billboards you want, but if you don't know how to actually prosecute a personal injury case, you're not going to do any good for anyone.
Shouldn't people look up to see? Okay, so it's different. Like Rick's been around for 40 years, but shouldn't people look up to see like the biggest cases, how much money has been brought in and stuff like that? The average consumer really is just Googling.
Yeah, but
and they're looking at reviews.
The problem with that is the big cases are not representative. And the other thing is, okay, so I see that this attorney had a case and they got $10 million. Okay. But maybe the case was worth $20 million. Maybe it was a case that anybody could get $10 million out of, but it takes a real attorney to get the $20 million. And you don't see that, and these some of these firms are handling thousands of cases, and then they'll advertise, oh, here's 3 good results that we got. Well, yeah, what happened in the other 997 cases or whatever. So I always tell people, I think with lawyers, it's the same as it is with, dentists and doctors. Get recommendations from your family and friends, from people that you trust. Because when you have somebody come to you and go, look, I had a case, I went to this firm, they treated me really well, they communicated with me and they got a good result. Well, that's probably your best starting point.
As I started this, actually, I believe it was February 1st of last year. So I'm actually almost coming up a year of doing the Problem Solver.
Yep.
One of the problems where people were calling me specifically and they were asking for legal advice, but I'm not an attorney. So that's where we created the Las Vegas Legal Network, where it was a network of different lawyers. And then Richard Harris, the defenders, ticket busters, law tigers, basically started to be part of the network. And then I would refer people because I felt Richard Harris did a great job. At the same time, I was looking at other reviews and reputations, social media about the people in general, because like Richard Harris doesn't do family law, it doesn't do business like litigation. So I was looking for other attorneys. One of the biggest problems is like communication. Communication, I think, is so key. Spoke to several people today. Like, I haven't spoken to my lawyer in a year. I haven't met with them. I don't even know what's going on in my case. But it's so important for the communication aspect, and I think that a lot of lawyers fail to do that, and they forget what it's like to be a consumer on the other side. So that's why we created the network, to find the right people. And if they're not communicating properly with people that have cases, then we're going to remove them from the network, because I don't want bad people, bad lawyers, not bad lawyers, but lawyers that don't know how to communicate. Even if you're doing an amazing job, if you don't communicate with the client, then it's a bad experience.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to ask you, I feel really bad. I spoke to someone yesterday, and this comes up because I was a cop. I'm a cop at heart, 17 years. Even myself being the problem solver, I feel like I'm, the number we just recently acquired was 999-1111. Basically, if you call the police, it's 911, and we got me, the problem solver, is 999-1111. Easy number to remember in general. I feel bad for people, these cases, the more and more I hear about it, these hit and run cases where people have no insurance. The guy I spoke to yesterday gets into an accident, it's DUI, and the guy tells me he lost his right eye and he broke his neck. He's in the hospital for a while, and they're trying to find out his insurance information. And I just feel horrible with some of the stories I hear in people, and most people don't have, their own insurance. They don't have the med pay, the uninsured motorist, and all the other stuff. And what can people really do in regards to that? I feel like there's nothing to be done, right? The person has no insurance, they have no assets, they're DUI or hit and run. Like, what is the average person supposed to do?
Well, it's
very sad.
Yeah, if you're the victim of a crash like that, then your recovery is limited to whatever insurance is available on your side or their side, or if there's a third party involved. And then, the personal assets of the person who hit you, So in Nevada, you're required to have 2550 insurance. Most people carry 2550 insurance.
The minimum.
Right. And, until they raise the minimum, which they just now raised it used to be 1530 for a long time. It was 1530.
So low.
They just, and it's for the vast majority of, fender bender accidents, that's going to be more than sufficient. Right. But when you get into an accident like what you're talking about, where there's real injury and there's real damages, people are just they're stuck. I mean,
It's horrible.
I've
this guy saying he's getting like a fake eye, and I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah, and the sad thing is, I've talked to a lot of personal injury clients about this, and they say, a lot of it is luck of the draw, who you got hit by.
I always say it's like a lottery.
Yeah, if you get hit by somebody who has a 25/50 policy, and you yourself don't carry, underinsured motorist protection of any, you're going to get stuck. Whereas if you get hit by somebody who happens to have, a 100, 300 policy and $1 million liability umbrella above that, well, then you're going to be in better shape. I mean, you're familiar with the case that I had with my friend who got punched by the professional boxer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, we ended up suing the boxer, but I told her the whole time, I was like, be glad, because no insurance is going to cover that. It's an intentional offense. No insurance is going to cover it. But I said, think how lucky you are, not that this happened to you, but that you didn't get punched by some random guy in a bar. Because at that point, you'd get nothing, right? Whereas this guy was a multimillionaire because he was a very successful professional boxer. So at least there was money to go after in her case. But that's just luck of the draw, because I'm sure, she's been in bars and been hit on by guys. And, what if one of those guys loses his temper and punches her? She's going to be SOL. And she was, badly injured. She had to have cervical fusion surgery. She had to have facial reconstructive surgery and all that. But she was just fortunate, and I use that term very loosely. The best thing would have been for her not to be punched, but fortunate that the guy had money of his own that she could go after. Mm-hmm. It's just luck of the draw.
It leads to a good question. It sounds kind of funny to say this, but if I'm a boxer and we're at a bar or somewhere in general and someone wants to come up to me and fight with me, do you actually have to declare, say, hey, by the way, buddy, AJ, listen, I am a professional boxer or I am a black belt in karate. If you come to me, I am going to protect myself. Do you actually have to do like a little bit of a disclaimer?
Well, it's going to depend on state law. It's going to be a state law issue.
So for something like in this state,
and I honestly don't know what the law is in Nevada
that's
on that.
Because I think I've heard someone like you have to like tell people like, hey, it'd be funny like before we fight, then we'll let you know I'm a black belt. There's a disclaimer: you're going to lose your life or you're going to lose some of a body part. Please do not, engage and provoke me. And if you do hit me, I will protect myself. Like you have to have maybe you have to wear a shirt or something.
Well, it reminds me of the Quentin Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, remember? Mm-hmm. And Bruce Lee and Brad Pitt's character were going to fight. And Bruce Lee says, I have to warn you that, my hands are registered as lethal weapons. And, if I kill you, there's serious criminal consequences. And Brad Pitt says, that's true of anybody. If you kill somebody, you're going to be arrested for manslaughter, you know? So I don't know what the law is on that, but I would say if you have enough time to give a disclaimer, I would say the better option would be to walk away.
Remove yourself from the situation. Yeah. I know that we have a few minutes left in general. I wanted to say, what are for your future, for new adventures, or what's the future for 2022 for AJ Sharp? What's going on in the future?
Well, what I'm trying to do with my business, I'm trying to branch out. I've actually been, it's funny because I sit at home and my phone rings, but it's come up recently. I used to be a college professor before I went to law school, and I love teaching. And so I've actually been approached by some law firms here and law firms actually in 4 different states, I think. And what they want to do is, when a big law firm hires 25 people directly out of law school, they hire all these first-year associates. And first-year associates know nothing about practicing law. They went to law school, they passed the bar, but they don't know how to practice law. You learn law by doing it, right? And so I've been approached, and I've approached some law firms saying, why don't you, when you get your first-year associates in, why don't you bring me in for like 3 days? Just give me your associates for 3 days, and I will teach them 2 things. I will teach them civil procedure, because the way you learn civil procedure in law school is to prepare you to pass the bar, not to prepare you to practice law.
Okay.
And then I will teach them legal writing, because both of those things, I went to Northwestern, which is a pretty good law school, and I had a legendary guy for civil procedure, and I had a legal writing class. But I am of the opinion that the way they teach civil procedure in law schools is not designed to help people learn how to practice law. And the way they teach legal research and writing, honestly, they might as well not bother. And so I say, I can take your first-year associates, because those are the 2 things. Those are the 2 things that a first-year associate learns in the next 2 years, to where by the time they're a third-year associate, they're actually worth something and they know how to practice law. I can turn them into that in 3 days. And so you can have a bunch of first years who, for the most part, are going to be acting like third years because they're going to have knowledge
More advanced
of how they're doing it. Yeah. So,
I was just thinking you got to call it AJ Sharp University. And whether it's, they all call them universities, but like a 3-day class.
Yeah.
AJ Sharp University, what it entails. Because you like teaching in general.
I do.
You like sharing how to win and the engagement of law and winning and the game of law. Yeah. And it probably is actually, they always say that there's one guy who does marketing online, and he's always talking about marketing. Like every single day he's got videos, like so much. I always say I want to sit down and watch all this stuff, but it's impossible.
Yeah.
At this point in time, he has the video every single day, and I would have to go back. I would have to sit, for hours and hours. But he's always educating, so most people won't follow what he's doing, so you're going to have to hire the guy. Yeah. So you already have enough work anyway. But technically, by you going out to all these different law firms and doing this, even if it was for free, right, for 3 days, they're going to wind up calling you anyway for work. It would give you more work than possible because people are going to be knowledgeable.
Which, by the way, it's not going to be free, but I get what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying, in general.
But well, I mean, they're going to be calling me.
Because most people are still not you, right? They're never going to be you. I mean, you are a rare breed.
I am the only one of me as far as I know. But the best thing, because like I said, I used to be a college professor and I love teaching. I used to teach the LSAT before I went to law school. I still tutor people for the LSAT and the bar exam individually. Oh, by the way, Kim Kardashian, if you're listening, I don't know why you're having so much trouble with the bar, but give me 3 weeks and you'll pass the bar. I guarantee it. But I could take this
by the way,
Diet Coke and get it through the bar in 3 weeks.
By the way, so if I send this to Kim Kardashian, are we charging Kim for weeks?
Free of
so you'll
charge.
do it for free.
Absolutely.
This is Chase, my engineer that's listening. My other guy is John Orlando. This is like a TikTok viral. So we're gonna do 3 weeks.
I guarantee
free training, and we'll guarantee.
She gives me 3 weeks of her undivided attention.
Okay.
I guarantee she will pass the bar.
So John Orlando, who basically runs Sticky Pot Studios, connected. I'm not sure if you know his father's Tony Orlando. Yeah. So we're gonna have to send this video to Kim Kardashian to make this happen. But here's a question: so are you California, Nevada? I forgot. You're both.
I'm licensed in both. I've
both.
passed the bar in both.
Got it.
So yeah, but so I used to be a teacher. I love teaching, and the best thing, because I've taught a lot of individual attorneys the kinds of things that I'm talking about teaching in a group setting, and there's just nothing to me that's more rewarding than that moment when you see it click and you suddenly go, okay, I've now moved this person from not understanding civil procedure to understanding civil procedure. Now they still got to learn stuff and put it into practice. But when it clicks to where they understand how the machine works so they can operate it, that's the best moment. Same thing with legal writing, when it's suddenly you see the light bulb go on and they say, oh, I get it. Now you still got to do it a million times to get really good at it.
Got it.
But it's like Oscar Robertson, the basketball player, University of Cincinnati, my alma mater, but back in the 60s. And he said, practice makes perfect, but only if you practice perfect. And I'm like, these people, they could keep doing what they're doing for the rest of their lives, and it's never going to get them where they want to go. They need to learn how to do it correctly. Then you practice it. Then you get really good at it.
Last question I have for you is, for the AJ Sharp University, for 3 weeks of training someone like Kim Kardashian, what is the value to that? If you had to put a value of 3 weeks of training?
I don't know. What's the value of passing the bar versus not passing the bar? I mean, she's working really hard. She passed the baby bar on her 4th try, which leads me to believe she's not being taught correctly, because it shouldn't take anybody 4 tries to pass the baby bar.
See, I feel like if you teach her for 3 weeks and she passes it, like you should get 10% of, zero. So we're going to just prove that you could help her pass.
I have tutored 11 people for the bar, and they've all passed. I want to say only one of them paid me, maybe 2. Okay. And usually it's just, I want to help people.
All right, so we're going to put this out there. Kim Kardashian's going to wind up calling you next week. They're going to say the problem solver sent her to you in order to get 3 weeks of some. You're going to go to California to train her, or what?
Whatever. However she wants to do it.
She's got to put you up at the Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton, Beverly Hills. 3 weeks of training.
I'll
free.
stay at Motel 6. I don't care.
Motel 6.
But I should say, don't get my number confused with Dave's, because his is 999-1111. Mine is 702-250-9111. So I'm a 911 number also.
Everyone's 911.
And I'm the one that you call for legal emergencies.
I like it. So Kim, 702-250-9111.
Anytime.
Is AJ Sharp in order to pass the bar, become an attorney,
guaranteed,
and they guys do all this good for America and California.
I do my part.
Well, AJ, I really appreciate being on the show today. You've been a great help with myself and giving me some inspiration over the last year. So I really do appreciate your time and efforts. And I think there'll be some great things to come for both of us in 2022. I'm glad to finally get you on the show where I can kind of educate people of what you do. I think it's kind of a cool twist to the Kardashian situation. I want to make that happen. It'll be a good challenge. Otherwise, Las Vegas Legal Network, is always looking for attorneys to be part of the network. And if you ever want to be a part of that and help, and maybe it's more of the helping the attorneys part of it, of the network, and that'd be great to have you a part of that as well.
That's what I do.
So anyway, I am David Kohlmeier. I am the problem solver. Every single week on Thursdays at 4:30, we go live, social media, YouTube, all that good stuff will be out there, and people will be able to see this, today. And you can listen to it on Spotify and all those good programs that have all the podcasts. Again, you can go to theproblemsolver.vegas, which is a progressive web app. You can add it to your home screen, get some push notifications, whatever I can do to basically help you guys that are out there that have some problems. We have a network of different lawyers through the Las Vegas Legal Network, having attorneys like Richard Harris, the defenders, ticket busters, and other attorneys that can help people if you have a legal problem. I will refer you to those attorneys, but a lot of times you may not have a specific legal problem, and you may just have a problem where you need help with whether it's real estate. We have realtors and mortgage agents, therapists, and you name it, your chiropractor, doctor, whatever you need. We have a network of different people through the Problem Solver to help people. So please keep in touch with me, the Problem Solver. Again, I can be reached at 702-999-1111, which is the brand new number for 2022. Please be careful, stay safe. If you want to get vaccinated, probably, it's still time to do that to prevent you from going to the hospital. Some crazy times. So please be careful, be safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next week. Have a great one.